Order. Declare the meeting open. Apologies and any leave of absence. I don't believe we have any council of absence. Very good. Someone like to remove that? We don't need to they've been available to someone like to confirm the minutes of the last meeting, which was a little while ago now, Thursday the 5th of December. As to make a record, Councillor Sturdy, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Sturdy.
No, anything. Thank you.
Any discussions, questions? Put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to disclosure of interest. Any council have any interest that they need to disclose before we move forward in the meeting? Once you board, there's no disclosures of interest. I have no minutes, although Councillor Walker has flagged the intent that we do take something to the joint organisation of council regarding the farm household allowance. We need to have that watertight before we take that to the JO. So Councillor Walker, you might confer before we actually do that.
Okay. Thank you. It's rained since.
Moving on to item 6, which is the reports of the committees. The first of those being the meeting of the Human Waste Depot Sunset Committee. There were 2 of those. The first one held on Thursday, the 5th of December. Someone want to move that? Councillor Sturdy, second. Councillor Driss. Councillor Sturdy.
Just a clarification if I can. Prior to the meeting, when we had a wee bit of a discussion, we're going to defer the part that refers to the opening hours. So do you want me to do that now, or?
I think we're on the first meeting, so what the recommendation.
So the first meeting we're okay to go with?
We're okay, because that was going to be a trial period, as I understand it, so that did occur, so we're happy to accept that as having occurred.
And the trial has been extended until
September. It was under until the 31st of January.
Yeah.
It's gone beyond that date,
yes.
Nonetheless, that's okay. So from my point of view, that meeting was a completed project. Thank you, Councillor Sturdy. Speakers, Councillor has spoken for, I believe. Speakers against. That being the case, we'll move that first committee meeting, the UMR Waste Depot Committee. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to the second meeting of the UMR Waste Depot Sunset Committee. And that was the one that was held on the 30th of January.
Yes.
Someone to Councillor Sergi,
so I'm happy to, following our discussion from before, the opening hours need to be adjusted. Well, they need to be discussed, is probably what I'm trying to say. So do you want me to do it as part of this, that we have our meeting with the Chamber of Commerce and then follow up with a workshop?
I think if we can tidy it up, we know exactly where we're going, Councillor Sergi.
So the opening hours part?
Yes.
Yeah, please.
Yes. So, what will happen, Councillor Sergi, I understand, we continue with the present opening hours that have been instigated on a trial basis.
Yeah.
Yes. There will be a meeting between this committee and the Chamber of Commerce. Yeah. And from there we'll move forward with a consensus about how it.
With the workshop of the whole council, and then bring the results of those back to the March meeting.
Yes. There are 2 other items, 5.2 and 5.3 there. The site assessment at UMR Waste Depot. So you're happy to continue with that in the in terms of engaging the management group to develop a plan of action. And further on 5.3, the council increased the access charge to $75 to large-scale residential landowners.
We'd like to continue that move if we can, please. So the only thing we're deferring is the actual opening hours until
a decision on the actual opening hours will continue with the trial basis. Yes. So it's all very clear to councillors. Yep. Maybe Councillor Sergi's moved that, seconder. Councillor Higgins. Oh, sorry, Councillor Driss.
No.
I called it. Councillor Bruce has a longer arm, and Councillor Bruce will have to move back.
I fit in here anyway, Mr. Mayor. No.
Okay, Speaker for in terms of Councillor Absurdity. Speaker against.
I'd like to ask a question of the committee, and the $75.
So we'd like to suspend standing orders, and if you're going to ask a question,
Yep,
would you like to move that?
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Brewer, suspend the standing orders. Second for that. Councillor Williamson. Councillor Brewer.
Thank you. Clearly, one of the issues with the UMR Waste Depot currently is the additional cost to having that manned, and I've no doubt that what's driving the $75 large lot residential charge that's designed to offset some of that cost. Can the committee inform us of the expected income generated from that extra charge? Is that calculation being done? And what's driving $75? How did we get to $75? Can someone help me with that, please?
I'm happy to have a stab at that one.
Yes.
We did, originally we were looking at the proposal that was brought forward was to make it $100, and we as a committee thought, well, that's really stretching it a wee bit because we're going to struggle to get that. So we came up with a figure of $75, which brought us in the range of the where we were trying to hit. From memory, I'm thinking it was going to bring in an income of about, was it 6,000 per year? Something like that. Just under the 7,000 per year, which would have allowed us to cover the opening hours a wee bit better without it being a really big onerous cost to the whole of the community. That's the way I read it. That's right, isn't it? Yeah. So that's where we came up with the 75.
So the onerous cost goes on the large lot residential.
No, because all the townspeople and all of the village people are still paying their fee, but we've got to come up with a reasonable and fair balance as to how we make up. If people in the community want the hours to be extended, someone's going to pay for it, and it shouldn't be always coming back to people who are currently paying for it now. So we need to spread the load, for the want of a better word, just a little bit better, so that we bring in the other users of the tip who currently probably aren't being charged for it, but nonetheless, we've got to make it fair and equitable across the board, a little bit better than what it is at the moment.
Well, and as you remember, we tried to introduce the $10 to the bigger landholders, and that got retracted because of the backlash it caused.
So just to Darren, just to might get some more accurate figures. Darren.
Currently, the residents who are paying a collection charge of $350, the actual collection charge is only around about 140 odd, and therefore the actual operation of the tip that each resident in Warren, every time Collar are paying is $110. Now, I think to be fair, that the double use of the tip for the general maintenance of the tip, not the collection, because the collection is already incorporated into the charge, should be burdened out as well. And that's why last year we tried to put it across all rate assessments, but the committee decided that, well, okay, the R5, which is just the Warren skirt, the outskirts use it probably more than what the outskirts of Collaway or the other side of them probably would, certainly up the top end. So that's why I think they looked at it. I mean, I would have set a charge of 130 because that's what the townsfolk pay. So that's the reason why I'm trying to build it up, and also to help pay for the extra costs, the additional costs that we're incorporating out there.
Councillor Bruce.
Yes, also we discussed it that when they did the survey a few years ago, people weren't happy with actually a garbage run, but they were happy to put money in instead of the garbage service. So that was another thing why we based it, charging them. Yep.
Thank you, Councillor. think the questions have been answered. Councillor Brewer?
I don't necessarily have an issue with being charged for it. I'm an R5 lot owner myself, and I don't certainly take it weekly, and often don't take it monthly. Councillor said, he said we're going to do 100, but we thought that was a little bit too much, and we wouldn't get that. I would have to say that if you implement a charge and it's passed by this council, you'll get that charge because it's on your rates notice. So you pay through those rates. So I don't really understand this. We wouldn't get that. I'm not saying increase it more or less. I'm just saying I'm just concerned a little bit about the mechanism to get to that $75 and the way that was done, and that the committee initially thought of 100 and then said, oh, we're not going to get that, so if we go to 75, maybe we'll get that. I have a hard time accepting that mentality that we wouldn't get that, but we would get that, and it's just numbers sort of thrown around to achieve a charge.
I think the Finance Administration has told you what the charge is, 130. I think there's been some recognition that people aren't using it all the time. Therefore, that is a reasonable charge. I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's any great scientific basis to it. I don't think there can be. You know, some people are going to use it, some people aren't.
Going forward, one of the solutions we may get to on this is a user pays arrangement, where if you use the tip, you should be expected to pay for that use. There's no question that there's no free kicks here. You know, we did talk about in that December council meeting, there's several items that haven't yet been addressed by the committee in those two subsequent meetings. One was, you know, fees and charges, yet to see how that's been thrashed out. So if we were to go to change those and make changes to the tip opening hours and those sorts of things, then we still haven't seen the fees and charges. We talked about a docket system. I can't see any evidence where that's been discussed at the tip. We were going to provide notice to people who are taking materials to the tip that under the new system, this would cost you this. We're well short of where we need to be. So I'm not saying don't do this charge, but I just want to know that this is part of the big picture, and it fits in with where we're going with the whole tip setup, and that all of these things that we've asked to be addressed are addressed, and so we can move forward and do, the next time we make these calls, they're going to be the right ones, and we do them once and we're not going to undo them, or there's not going to be this conjecture in this chamber.
I think part of that will be answered in terms of the plan of management for the UMR item 5.2 in this meeting. So I think it will be a matter of progression of steps.
So if this plan of management comes up with a charge of $130, do we then jack the charge up to that? Or what do we think is going to happen out of that? I suspect that if the residents of the township are paying $130, I think it might be an option, or one of the outcomes might be from that, study, is that everyone pays the same charge, whether you're in or not. Whether that's correct or not, I don't know. So then what do? We change it again, yet again.
Can I just say also that there is a grant been approved and for the UMO Waste to have a retrieval station. That in the next step would then include charges. We can't do this until it's a step process. When you get the retrieval platform or whatever it is, then the charges, I suspect, I hope I'm saying the right thing here, then that is when that will come into play. And you realise if you do the right thing, you still don't pay. Most tips, from what I gather, that's the way it works.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Yeah,
it might come out that everyone pays after. There's as many models for this as there are tips in New South Wales. So we're in an infancy. We're trying to invent a wheel that's already been invented. So we could get to a lot of these situations a whole lot easier if we, got to a sensible position. And my very last point is, if we allowed these tip opening hours to get through, so Monday, Wednesday and Friday, 1 hour a day, the $75 extra charge, was that to cover the extra 3 hours per week going forward? Because you've said as a committee it's to cover additional expenses. those additional expenses, if those hours got through today, were only going to be 3 hours extra per week. So that's more rhetorical than anything. So there's a number of things going on that are not necessarily linked together.
It won't come out being
I'm for a workshop on this, a brainstorming workshop. This is exactly the sort of thing I want to talk about at length. So can I ask the committee to consider bringing the rest of us in so we can have these conversations, because we are being asked by businesses and the community to represent them in this, and I think the best way to do that is thrash it out in a session, a workshop session, and we can move on and come out with what we should do. And it might be that $130 is a more appropriate charge.
Councillor Brewer, I think we might need to return to standing orders because we're having an argument, a discussion that's beyond the scope of this motion.
Can we workshop this?
We'll need to move out. We can, but I think you'll have to move an amendment to the motion we do have on the books at the moment. So what we'll have to do is suspend standing orders. Then if
Not sure what I'm going to amend it to.
if you seek to move this forward in that direction that you're suggesting, you'll have to move an amendment to the motion that we have on the books. So
I don't necessarily want to amend it. I just need to know that how we got to that point. I think it's fair and reasonable to charge R5 block users. I'm one of those.
would it be a recommendation to leave that till you have all this other process?
Yeah.
Well, the other thing,
I think that Councillor Walker has a reasonable suggestion there. Maybe we defer the part till you actually have.
because there's no date here either when we start that charge.
Let's move back into the council meeting. So reinstate standing orders. We
And
can
remove that 5.3.
Well, I need you to move that we resume standing orders.
I'll do that. Thank you.
Second, Councillor Williamson. Happy to do that. Then, the councillor, we have a motion on the books. The first one is that we defer the opening hours discussion in line with what we've spoken about. That items 5.2, the site assessment and a management plan be undertaken, and 5.3, the access charge regarding the large slot residential. Do you want to move, as Councillor Walker's perhaps indicating that item 5.3 be suspended till a formal management plan has been adopted? Is that?
Yes, and with the start date, agreed start date, because I don't know when we would start that. From today?
No, I think it's the whole thing's being suspended until there is a management plan.
Sure.
I think that's what
That's like that.
if I'm understanding what Councillor Walker's intent is, so I wonder whether the mover of the motion might.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy.
An amendment,
Mr. Mayor, there's a motion on the books for the move
a second,
so I need an amendment.
amendment. Yep.
Okay,
Councillor
so
Brewer.
who wants the amendment? Councillor Brewer to suggest it, or are you happy for me to make it?
Just another councillor is going to amend your motion because your motion's the one you want.
Oh, yeah.
So, Councillor Brewer, are you happy to amend the motion along the lines that the opening hours be deferred, a decision on the opening hours be deferred until the Chamber of Commerce have been engaged?
Yes, thank you.
5.2, that the site plan assessment goes ahead, the management plan with the two fellows, Bob Amaral and Bob Bailey,
Maybe unchanged 5.2.
and that an access charge regarding the large lot residential landholders be deferred until the plan of management is in place.
Yes,
Happy with that?
thank you.
That is the amendment. A second for the amendment, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you.
I do believe we nearly had adequate discussion. Councillor Brewer has spoken for, a speaker against.
Let's move on.
That being the case, put that, all those in favour, against, carried.
The amendment was the motion, Mr. Mayor.
And so move the amendment does become the motion. Now we have to move that as the motion. Councillor Brewer, you have to move that as the motion. Put it, now we don't have to do it again. Okay. In that case, we'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the committee reports again. This one the meeting of the Airport Operations Committee. Someone to move that? Councillor Williamson, second, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Williamson, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Just a quick one. This is just had a meeting for all those 12 different lots at the airport to be done. Is all government, is all paid through the grant. So it's not coming from Shire money at all. We still haven't got the deed back from the government. We've signed all our stuff. We're still waiting the money to come back. But we wanted to give the project managers an idea of what to put in for and where to go on a list of stuff out there, which will go easy for them. So the idea was the meeting was to give the project managers an idea where to go forward and how to go with the project. So that's how we'll have a couple of those things will change along the way, but this is just a start. But like I said, we still haven't got the deed back yet, so that was the idea of this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Speaker against? That being the case, I'll put that.
Can I just quickly ask through you, Mr Mayor, what RNAV means? I'm not very good with acronyms.
That's a navigation for nighttime flying, and it's not nighttime. It's IFR, so instrument rating. So you come into it, you'll have an airport. So if it's really cloudy, and especially like real flying doctors and all that sort of stuff that are coming in here, you actually have a flight plan where they run, which is legal to come in. So they actually go down to, if we set the runway up properly, they can come in on a flight plan to 500 feet above the ground. They still can't see the ground.
No.
So it takes them through cloud and gets them down really low. So that's the idea of that. So that was in the budget, and that's all in what the government agreed to. So what we're getting set up for is unbelievable for this area. So, and the helicopter pad is just magic for the that helicopters. Only one helicopter's coming here that runs for the hospital, basically. So we get a proper place to put them, and yeah, it's not costing us anything. That's the beauty of it. So.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Speakers against? Question. We'll put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to the meeting of the Council Chambers Development Sunset Committee. The first one of those held on the 18th of December. Someone to move that, please. Councillor Surdey, second. Councillor Walker. Councillor Surdey, speak to that.
Yeah, I think that the 18th of December was okay. There was nothing that we changed or twiddled around in there, so I'm happy to move that.
Thank you. Speaker against?
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
Councillor Surdey, what's the time frame? It says item 4.2 that council proceed in the December meeting. Council proceed to build the community centre. What's the time frame for that? I thought maybe we should, if that's going ahead, we should put something out in the media or.
Well, yeah, 3 months there.
Mr Mayor, if I could answer that, at this stage we're working through the costing of the plan and some other changes that need to be made, and we'll come back to the next committee meeting. So at this stage the time frame isn't set because we're starting to run into just material difficulties and areas, and we just need to tie down the costing more exactly before we proceed further. So there will be another committee meeting, Mr Mayor, to discuss where we go from that point.
This was in very broad terms, Councillor Irving, saying that this is where we're going, but the committee were quite adamant that we need to have some costings and some detailed plans before we actually move forward. So that's, as the gentleman said, there is no date because we really need to be very clear about what we're doing, when we, and how we're going to do it, and the costs of that. Thank you. Further speakers against? Sorry, speaker clause? No. Speaker against? That being the case, we put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to the second meeting of the Council Chambers Development Sunset Committee. That one was on the 5th of February. I move to that. Councillor Surdey. Second, Councillor Walker. Councillor Surdey.
Yeah, it's pretty much all in there. We've made some modifications to how it was all going to be planned out to try and bring the costs down and to make it a bit more doable, for the want of a better word. I'm happy to move as it is there, please.
Again, for council information, that will all come back to us in terms of costings. They'll come back to the committee, they'll come to the full council meeting in terms of costings before we proceed. Just so for information, the second option was the one that decided that was adopted just to make it look a little bit more modern with a new wider door at our entranceway to the office. And but beyond that, as per council would understand that this awning out here wouldn't, if the proposed awning wouldn't be supported by this wall of the building, so we had to, the engineers and general manager and the architect have had to go back and reassess where that was all happening, because it's fine to plan these things, but if they're structurally we're not sound enough to do that, well, things get adjusted. So please be confident that the
building might fall down.
Yeah, yes, we don't need that. But be confident that nothing will happen until it's all comes back to the Sunset Committee, and then it'll come to full council with full costings and where we're going and how it's all going.
Okay.
That being the case, put that, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to the meeting of the Water Conservation Committee held on the 20th of January. Move for that. Councillor Brewer, second. Second for the water. Thank you, Councillor Higgins. Councillor Brewer.
There's not a lot to report from this meeting other than we decided to keep the water restriction levels where they are. At the time, we were in the middle of joining the two water supplies for the purposes of firefighting and those sorts of things. That is, at the time, was an ongoing engineering exercise by the council, which I suspect now is complete. And so, other than those other points in item 5, they were discussions that we had to work out where things were. A lot of those points were still ongoing and still are ongoing. The Stafford Street Reservoir still leaks, but there is a plan to investigate ways of reducing that. And the rest of them are still quite self-explanatory. There's no tricks to that. Water is a vital piece of infrastructure and soaks up a lot of council effort and time. And I'd have to say that the council's done a pretty good job of getting us to where we were in that drought condition and maintaining firefighting capability throughout the town. The only real thing that we decided on was the water restrictions out of that committee meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Brewer. People against?
No, just a question.
Question, Councillor.
Yes, a very simple one. Just item 4, it had on it that the water restrictions would remain the same until the end of summer. So am I right in that the end of summer is the end of this month? Yeah. Or are you talking about the end of when the hot weather finishes?
At the end of summer. So we'll have to review that. We'll need another meeting and a council that needs to come to council to make those changes. So without anything changing, they'll just flow through to the next Water Conservation Committee meeting, at which time they'll be reviewed and advise the council.
I think Councillor Brewer, I've just been reminded that that's on the 11th of March. I think it's been scheduled for next Water Conservation meeting. So,
11 days into autumn.
That answers. Yes, that answers. Thank you.
Can I please ask a question for Mr. Mayor about the Albert Priest? They've put up this temporary wall or whatever at the top. How long is that going to be there? Is there any feedback on that, or from State Water? Is that a State Water issue?
There, it's probably State Water, but I believe the fish ladder's open and the boards have been taken down on the top weir because of the flush that's come through, and there's water obviously going down Bar Creek, and I believe all the boards have been taken out down Duck Creek and the other places to allow water to flow through the whole system, not just through the Albert Priest channel. So that's where I believe it is.
So there's no indication when that's going to all be dismantled then? The temporary.
The temporary stuff will stay in there because we're not finished with the drought. There's,
Yep.
you know, I believe, you know, the dam now has a bit over 4% in it, but that's a long way short of what we'll need to get away from drought conditions. So I guess they won't take any of that structure down until they're sure that they can supply constant water.
I suppose it all ties in with this plan of piping water to Cobar. That might be in the ether, but I mean, it's galling some people. It seems to be water going to Cobar instead of probably going down where it should be going.
I think that's an issue we just take up at a high. I mean, we've been canvassing that with Water New South Wales for some time, and that whole. Just for information, there seems to be a little bit of a disconnect in Water New South Wales to me as an outside person. It seems that some parts of that know what other parts are doing and timing of meetings, etc., etc. So, look, it's all on the agenda in terms of when the general manager and the project manager meet with Water New South Wales. They're acutely aware of where we are and bringing out the attention of Water New South Wales. So I think that's what we can do. We can also speak to our parliamentarians who will be here on Saturday.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's probably getting away from our Water Conservation Committee meeting, but thank you.
How are the watering hours going? I know we had a lot of community feedback that they weren't happy with those morning hours, but I guess, you know, with the rain it's helped. But yeah, have we had any more feedback of how the hours going? Are they being implemented well, or are people not sticking to them? Do we know that?
Indications are that people have stuck to them. Not everyone's happy with them, of course, but you know, at that time we're in the middle of a drought, and you're going to get complaints because it didn't suit everyone. Since then, of course, we've had significant rain, and a lot of those near dying lawns have come back, and so I suspect once it dries out again, there will be more complaints about watering hours not suiting. We have issued some, what do we call them? The school was asked to adhere to the hours a little tighter because they were watering all hours of the day. That's the central school. They're back in line now, and you know, in fact, their playing surfaces look fantastic. So, does that answer your question?
Yes.
Not everyone's happy, but everyone seems to be doing their bit.
I understand. Yep. Thank you, Councillor. That being the case, I think time to put the minutes of the meeting of the Water Conservation Committee. All those in favour? Against? Carried. We move to the meeting of the Shire Racecourse Committee held Tuesday the 11th of February. We can remove it in a second for that.
Yeah, I'd like to move, Mr Mayor, just except for item 5, an amendment there as we have a local government procurement policy that's in place. I need to elaborate on that.
So, Councillor Beach, you're giving a recommendation accepting item 5,
yeah,
which is the project cost of over $5,000 be advertised in the local paper.
Yeah.
Yep. And we have a procurement policy, and that will cover that.
Yeah.
So this is superfluous to our needs as a council.
Yeah.
Yes. We'll see further on in the business paper as a result of the Manager Finance and Administration's report, how people can tender for jobs and be involved in the panels that provide work to council. So I think that covers it. I wonder, General Manager, do you have anything to add to that?
Mr Mayor, council is required legally to have a procurement policy that complies by law. He can amend this policy to add other requirements in, but you know, I would suggest to council that to advertise everything we buy for $5,000, which is occurring minute by minute, you will shut council down. We just can't afford to do that, and to be honest, I think I would have to buy paper on behalf of council, because we'll take up every page every week. Because when we go out to spend on a daily basis, it's much more than $5,000 each item we write. And the procurement policy sets guidelines as to how many quotes we get based on prices right through to tendering and so on there. So, you know, I would be happy if council did exclude that requirements being requested on that basis.
So Councillor Beach has moved that X item 5. I would need a seconder for that. Councillor Drews. Councillor Beach, anything further to add? And then I'll ask for a speaker against. Or is there a speaker?
I'd just like to ask a question when I can.
Yep. Councillor Beach, anything further?
No, I was just going to give a general wrap.
We might take Councillor Brewer's question, and then Councillor Beach is not in strict order, but we might.
Can you give us a general wrap of where the project is, essentially? Because there are so many facets to this project. I think
Mr. Smith's standing orders and Councillor Beach can give us a rundown, because what we are getting, of course, Councillor Brewer is right. There's a subcommittee that Shire Racecourse put on the subcommittee underlying this. So Councillor Brewer's moved to suspend standing orders. Someone seconded. Councillor Walker. And Councillor Brewer has a question for Councillor Beach, and we'll move.
Yeah, and with the general manager, because the general manager does a lot of the project management on this, but my concern is that we're just going to run out of money before we got finished on this. So can we get an idea of where the project is and where the money is, please?
My pleasure. I can positively speak about what's happening down there, because I think we're finally moving forward and gaining a bit of traction. The show committee, they got their pavilion as of last Thursday, I speak. So their pavilion's got its base down, and that should be in place. They did request to have some money put aside for flooring the McCalman pavilion. They're a little short there at this stage, but they still intend to do that. So, and they've put an application in to secure a little more funding to finish that process. The next thing on our agenda is the camp draft and Polar Cross, their canteen secretary bar area. So that's applications going forward with that now. That's all in the process. So that should be coming up to look at those tenders and quotes.
That's upstairs in the.
This is for the Polar Cross. This is their camp for the camp draft and the Polar Cross. Out in the middle. Yeah, okay. Yeah. They're having a building there, so that's in the process now. Then that's all part of the funding. So that's all. So far, this is all going to spec. The equestrian centre, like as you know, those tenders blew right out. So what we've found is the 40 metre width is the stumbling block. Once it gets wider than that, the costs go through the roof. But in saying that, a lot of the or some events, barrel racing and things like that, 40 is the absolute minimum. So what we're trying to do is get something sort of, get to 45, even 50, and still stay within the budget or head down that track. And I think as of last Thursday, Kerry was getting pretty close to getting some quotes, and so that should be, Glenn, mate, if you want to elaborate. He's still close as on this Thursday. but things are looking much better than they were a couple of months ago. So I think that's good. The Warren Jockey Club, they've finally have an application in for which was a part of the main complex for the jockeys, ladies jockeys rooms downstairs. So that's
they submit to your committee scope or part of supplying quotes or something like that. How's that work?
Part of the funding was that they secure funding from Racing New South Wales around 100 grand. So they've got that. So they didn't have that application in until just recently.
Oh, I see.
So that's up and happening. They've also put an application in to get water mains direct from the town out to the course. So that's a bit of a water saving, things like that. If they get that application, there'll be tanks underground plus pipelines out there to connect to our system. So they're just applications. The other thing that was a bit of a bugbear down there was the LLS area. So we're in talks, general managers in talk with the Crown Land and LLS. That is progressing quite well. So that issue is probably going to be sorted quicker rather than much later. So that's the other positive. The main hospitality area, our general managers have to go back to, well, hasn't had to go back, but we've just looked at that whole development down there and we had to simplify it a bit. You know, it was potentially going to blow out as well. So we've had Belinda re-looking at that and just redoing a few things. It's still going to be great, but it's just going to have to have a few adjustments. So there'll be another design put out for everyone to look at that. As for potential blowouts, Councillor Brewer, there's basically everyone put their pot of money in, got their wish list, and really we're running to budget. If they're not allowed to go over, and so the only stuff, I think everything so far is going well. It's the equestrian centre will be the big question. If we go at the 40, we'll come in under spec, no trouble. But we're trying very hard to get to 50 if we can, so we can bring every activity. You know, but like as an equestrian centre, so an equestrian centre, which is what it is. So an Olympic-sized equestrian centre is 40 by 20. So that fits in easily. So it's just these other outside, like, you know, your barrel racing, some of this cattle stuff require 40 as a minimum. So that's there. You know, if we can get to 42 or 43, that'll probably make that stuff happen.
So if you can't get to 50 in the current budget, are you then going to exclude some of those horse sports and break the barrel racing? I mean, I'm not saying barrel racing can't be done outside, or if we get to a point where we want to have every single horse sport in this arena, then if there's only one or two of those sports, that's
so. If we can't fit in, we're going to have to come in under budget, because that's it. So what we're doing, we're just trying, if we can get to 50, what we're saying, if we can get to 50 with, we will. But if it's going to blow us out of the budget, we're not going to go there.
And it doesn't severely reduce the number of horse sports we can do in there.
It's probably a couple. And in saying that, like the Tamworth one is, it's under 40, I think, and there's a few events they can't hold there. They're a couple of metres too short, but they still hold. It's still very usable.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So yeah, and it's still going to be a great facility. You know, I think it's, you know.
Just to add to that, the reason it's not up is these discussions about what can we have and can we have bigger and better, and we've gone out and priced everything that the subcommittees asked us to do, and come back and said, look, realistically, it's too far out of the budget and we can't stretch it. So we've got to come back into reality. Council will not go over the budget, so at the end of the day, if barrel racing can't be held undercover, it's got to be outside, so be it. But it fits 90% of everything else, and it's really only barrel racing that came up that said those overrun areas, you just need that little bit more to get past that 40 metres. So if we can get 42 metres width at the same price as 40, then we're fine, because the kick rails that come in, you know, they're going to take about a metre of room if you're at each side. So they're about a half a metre out. So if it's 40, we have a 39 metre ring, which is what we're trying to avoid. So we really want 40 clear metres inside. But there's a lot of negotiation there. We are within budget, and the user groups, as Councillor Leach has said, have come back and said, if we do this and save some money, can we have this? And that's happened to nearly every user group. And we're quite happy to manipulate that money as long as what they want in the first place happens on the ground. So, you know, and there's some combined things we'll be talking about with committee members, such as, you know, there's two offices to go out there. Well, if we build one building with two offices, a canteen, that'll suit both groups. It's now just where can we position that, and then there'll be a saving in that case around about $30,000 that both those groups can go away and spend on something else they need. So we're trying to work with them to get the best we can. I think the biggest issue has been that the
reality had to set in. The council's holding all this money for you as a user group to go and do it. And it's, you know, I think it was just a bit overwhelming for some groups that when can I start, what can I do, isn't really there. And I think we've now got past that point. You know, the groups themselves are very enthusiastic and it's great to see.
How are you solving the Crown land issue? Is that you know, because later on you've got a section here talking about the rezoning of Crown land to public or whatever. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, it's not an easy answer. We have met with the LLS and the LLS support the leasing of the land by council. So we've now met with the Lands Department in Dubbo, and we've met with the Aboriginal Lands Officer as well to go through everything that's out there. What we didn't want to do is disadvantage any of the current users. So the Pony Club has a licence to use part of that LLS land, and we wanted to make sure that that was retained. We wanted to make sure that the racetrack was retained on there and all the structures. So we've been through all those negotiations with them, and at this point in time, I think we're doing okay. There will be one building we believe will have to be moved, which is where they park the starting gates, and we can move that back onto the council-controlled Crown land. The proposal is the council will take a lease off the New South Wales government over the land, and then council will be responsible for issuing the licence to the Pony Club to use what they've got. So it doesn't change anything for the Pony Club. It just means instead of dealing with LLS, they deal with council, which is probably easier. As part of all the negotiations, we've talked about fencing all the land in together so that we have animal exclusion all the way around, because that's causing issues with horses and kangaroos don't fence for some reason. So all that's being negotiated at this stage, and we're hoping soon we'll receive a positive outcome. So yeah, there's an Aboriginal heritage study being undertaken, and we believe that'll come up clear on that area, and it's much wider than that, and any protection that needs to be there will be written into our lease. So that's where we're currently at. And then once the lease is issued, yes, we must then declare what the land use is, and it'll have to be community use. It won't be operational, because operational means you can develop and subdivide it. We're not allowed to do that with a travelling stock route. So, you know, that'll come back at some stage. So there's a lot of negotiations and a fair bit of legal work running around in the background on all that. Yeah, that helps Mr. Mayor.
And the project isn't bearing the cost of any of that? Is that?
Mr. Mayor, at this stage, there's been no cost to council or this community for those negotiations apart from staff time and travel.
Is there a cost involved with the lease?
Mr. Mayor, there's always a cost involved with the lease, and some of the requirements is to recover costs on site, but we've also negotiated that any money that's paid back in for the use of that land goes back into that land's redevelopment. So it has to use the groups to then use some of that money to redevelop or to fence or protect, whatever.
So Andrew Mulligan, who's the chair of Local Land Services, and Susan Madden came. They were here. When was that, month or two? A month ago, into January. And so they've been on the site and actually had a look at the problem. So they're really probably weren't overly aware of what our problem was until they actually arrived. And the project manager, Jerry Jones, had a map and showed them exactly what the problem was, and they've taken on board. And they're sympathetic to our cause. It's not as though we're at loggerheads. So that's the best part of it. And they'll happily work this out. So I hope that also helps with where we're going.
Question?
Yes.
Councillor Beach, was there an issue with the War Pavilion? There was just a rumour going around, and
I guess that's sort of an internal group issue more than anything. I mean, we can sort of who did whatever, but really that's an internal issue. They have a bucket of money and, that's their problem to sort out, basically. They've still got so much money left over that they've got to come up with a proposal not proposal, but a plan to finish off what they want to do.
So Mr. Mayor, just on that, so it's clear, I did meet with the president of the Shire Society and they're back on track and very happy with their new building, its location and the fact that they were able to save some money to put towards their other building and potentially concrete the floor. So all that's back on track, it's just communication issues.
And if there are
Not with council, by the way. I think so.
if there are underspends, what happens to that money in each of those sub-projects? Does that go back into the main group, or do they get to keep that? Or
It's them.
okay,
But the way we've allocated, Mr. Mayor, is if we're trying to get the groups to underspend so that they can get some additional stuff back into their area.
okay.
Or they can donate it to another group.
Chances.
Slim.
Councillor, I think we've had one discussion. Yep. So, Councillor, would you like to move that the reinstate standing orders?
Yes, please. Yep.
And Councillor Walker, second. We're happy to second that, the reinstate standing orders. That being the case, we're back on the minutes of the showground race before committee meeting. I believe we've had enough discussion on that. We're happy to move that. That being the case, all those in favour? Against? Carried. The meeting of the Sporting Facilities Committee held Wednesday the 12th of February. Someone to move that. Councillor Irving, second. Councillor Drews. Councillor Irving.
Yeah, so we had a relatively successful, Councillor Brewer will be there, although he couldn't make it. Councillor Higgins was there. Thank you to the councillors that went to the skate park, kind of soft opening as it was called. Even though it rained, it was great publicity, and I know just on the side that the children are using it every afternoon, a lot of them. So that's going well. But just the rest of the meeting was productive in that we did want to clarify more about the pool, the swimming pool, where it's at. So we've asked for a pretty much concept plan, a site plan on where things are going, and also we've asked for a financial breakdown or detailed breakdown of costings of what's happening at the pool. There's been kind of, just to get it out there and help the public understand what's going on there a bit better. So you can see in the general discussion we had, General Manager suggested that we have a subcommittee, including all the relevant stakeholders that involved in that, the pool, the progress of the pool. It does need a concept plan, so that needs to happen. And with the fence, there'll be an additional gate because the doors into the pool are electric. There's an issue when there's a blackout or power outage. So there'll be gates put in adjacent to where the boys' toilets are to give public access to the pool if there's a power outage. It can also be happening. And there's concern that we don't know figures, but because the toddler pool has been out of action over summer, we have, there's the patronage to the pool has been reduced, so that's a concern. We don't know how much exactly, so we'll find that out. Yeah.
Just for clarity, I might just ask the general manager to bring everyone up to date with where the pool actually is, so that there's no misinformation circulating. Is that appropriate? As of roughly today's date, I won't.
Mr. Mayor, as at today, the small pool not know. In the initial works, we found a lot of very dodgy pipe work under the ground that was severely leaking. One of the concrete walls fell out of the pool. It had been poured in with the concourse, so when the concourse came up, the walls fell out of the pool. They had to go back in. The reason to do all the work was to provide a separation for filtration and chlorination, because the law years ago said that those pools needed to be separated. So the new filtration units in and the new chlorinators are in. There was a delay in getting the chlorinators in because someone had a bushfire on the eastern side of the mountains that wiped out many towns and villages, water treatment plants, and the people putting ours in, we believe that it was far more important to get towns and villages water supplies up than to have them coming out here and install a chlorinator. So that's all installed. The electricals are now in place, and we're ready to run and test all the filtration units. There's some of the other bits and pieces. It's still all fenced off because new fencing had to go up around the outside and then be corrected because of heights and sizes that contractors manage. So there's been a few delays, some of them outside our control, and some we've agreed to as well in that process. But the pool itself is back in order. It's full of water. It just needs to go through the trial testing to make sure that the chlorination and everything else works. And obviously from this report here, there's gates to be put back into the new fence, which have been raised since the fence went up.
So the obstacle was we're trying to separate the two pools. When you start doing that, you find unforeseen things, and that's basically the dilemma. You have to fix that problem before you go back to your original problem.
Just tell you what we're doing. Once the season closes, we'll be leaving the water in the pool to see how far it drops down, so we can determine where any leakage is at this point, and then obviously we'll then start to pull out all the concourse around the pool and replace that with pipe work. So there's still going to be a mess down there over winter, and hopefully it's all back together and working properly with the new main pool filtration system in for next summer.
The chlorination for the little pool is not gas, I take it.
Mr. Mayor, it is gas.
Do you think that pool building then meets requirements?
Yes, it does.
It's got to have it change its atmosphere, I think, once every 4 hours.
It meets the requirements. That's why we had specialist chlorination people come and put in all the units.
No vents, ground level? With chlorine, I would suggest being heavier than air, but thing on top wouldn't lift any heavy.
No, it's not meant to, Mr. Mayor, and the reason it's got a colourblind fence around that will be at ground level, so the ground will be raised all the way around, is to contain gas if it should leak.
Yeah, I wouldn't really have that.
Mr. Mayor, unfortunately, I would rather follow the law than what a councillor's opinion is. Sorry to say that, but bringing specialist people in is the reason we've done it, to make sure that it fully complies.
Yes, so there is a few things that need clarifying just to put people's minds at ease, and that's why I think we really need a specific site plan for it, to know where exactly things are and what their purpose is, and also including anything that's associated with the proposed water park and any drainage associated with the skate park that might be affecting the pool site. So all that needs to be further clarified. Yeah.
Before we put the fence up.
We'll be going down to the pool for our next meeting.
Thank you. Had enough discussion on the Storm Facilities Committee meeting. Happy to put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to minutes of the next meeting held on 18th of February. And have to move those minutes. Councillor Sturdy. Councillor Williamson, Councillor Sturdy.
Nothing really jumps to mind, but if I could just ask a question, and I think this is probably the way to do it. With the changes of all of the staff and how everything has happened in the past councils, we used to actually have a tree sort of a diagram that would show you who was responsible for what and who, where everybody sat in the zoo, for the want of a better word. Is it possible, once all the things are sorted and we're back to where we hope to be, that we could actually give a copy of a plan so that we just were able to look at it and see, you know, where everybody sits? Because it's a bit hard when it's a bit confusing, I find. Is that possible?
Refer that to the general manager.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to alert council that council does not get involved in staff matters under the Act. Very happy to tell you who's who, but the fact is, no, under the current workforce plan that you'll consider today, it comes back to what's required under the award and the descriptions under the award. And in the tables there, it does say that, you know, Darren, for instance, reports to the general manager, doesn't have his name, it has the position. By going back to what the award descriptions are and what people can do under those roles, as the award descriptions means that the workforce is fully skilled, which they are, they have the skill ability, but it takes away those positions that say, I only do this. The award actually in 1993 was amended to say that all council staff should be multi-skilled, be able to do a variety of positions when asked, and that's what that workforce plan does.
Yeah, so that pretty much
But
answers the
again,
question.
you know,
I wasn't looking for names, it was more, you know, we know who sits with what position. Yeah,
Hierarchical
just-
structure.
Yeah.
And we've had some changes recently to reporting and who's engineering manager, engineering services. That's changed a lot as well. It could be handy to have a hierarchical structure.
Mr. Mayor, it's much better to come back to the award, because a person who has the ability to drive a loader might be working in parks and gardens, and by coming back to the award, it says, well, if I need someone to drive a loader and they're sitting in band 1, level 3, they can drive a loader, and that's what the award says. Under a hierarchical structure, it says, I have a loader driver. Everyone goes, well, I'm not the loader driver, so why should I do it?
It just balances it out a wee bit more.
I understand where you're coming from, but it's much easier for us to manage the workforce according to the award rather than to a hierarchical structure.
So pretty much what's in that plan that you gave us is I mean, I wasn't looking for names or anything like that, but it's a wee bit hard when you where everybody used to what position they filled, and which leads me to my next question. With regard to the crew who are going out and doing the villages, what is their actual job description of what work they can and can't do while they're in the villages? Because it's a wee bit confusing sometimes. It's a bit hard.
Mr. Mayor, under the structure that's proposed for it, it could be 2 people, it could be 10 people turn up at the village and they can do the work which is permitted under the award for that position.
Right.
So they could be mowing, whippersnipping, planting trees, cleaning gutters, you know, it could be anything. They could be putting in irrigation lines, they could be building roads.
Okay, so that answers that question. And then the other one
gives us more variety, and you know, there's some changes in there that, you know, we've had specific people doing jobs, but other people need to be trained to do those jobs because they're getting older, they're reaching retirement age, and under a hierarchical structure that doesn't occur. Under the award, which has been in since 93, it does.
That's good. The reason I asked that particular question is because I've had a few comments from some residents to say, well, while they're out here, what are they actually doing? And I'm sitting there thinking, well, they're meant to be having a look at the villages, doing whatever needs doing, but there's comments coming back saying, well, they're not really doing an awful lot, and I'm thinking, okay, it's just get the
Mr. Mayor, that's supervision, and if councillors are being made aware of it, please make me aware of it, so that I can advise the appropriate officers correctly,
Excellent.
because it's a supervision issue.
Right. And the final question that I have is more of a comment, if I can. With the recent rain that we've had, which has been lovely, we've got a massive load of weeds all coupled up everywhere in that entire, mainly down the main, the median strip down Narrowmine Street and in the gardens and in the gutters, which are really starting to take over. So if it's possible, could we put that on the agenda that the next time we're out there, that we hit them with some weed killer, please? We've already done that outside of my place and they're all dying, so we know it's working. So that'd be good. I mean, the channels and all, you'll know where it comes in, you'll know where it goes. Much appreciated.
Anything else on the minutes? Councillor Bruce.
Yes, I'd just like to know what stage we're at with the rehabilitation of the levy situations, the levy bank.
Mr. Mayor, it's at a standstill at the moment. We've sort of lost direction on it. We've got to look at employing somebody. I haven't got time to attend to all the work that's involved in it. It's fairly comprehensive. We are chasing someone that we can put on as a project manager specifically for that project.
Just the comment, from, the river got up to 7 metres, it's getting up there. Got to be a little bit of a concern.
Absolutely. We just need to have it properly managed. Engineering services mind is
I can understand.
I think actually the last council meeting we asked to have that elevated to stay at the top, and the underlying point behind that was if it blows out, you'll have nothing but that to focus on as an engineering issue, and it is causing some concern, Mr. Mayor, through you. That's why the general manager and I have discussed it, and we are looking for someone that is suitable to appoint to that position of looking after the project for me. So on the board, it's very time consuming, and it's not helped by the fact that we have a number of vacancies in staff at the moment, particularly at the higher supervisory management level. Do you consider it a safety issue? Yes, I do consider it a safety issue. It's a major problem. I mean, I've had a contractor, one of my staff members, go around this week, just look at the levy bank, and I've got a list of works yesterday that are required at all the gates and everything like that. So it is an issue, and the chances of, or likelihood of a flood coming along, a big flood, is on the cards, and it's on my mind. So, yeah, I mean, I can tell you it's quite an amount of work, and I've got to find someone suitable to do the repairs to the gates and the whole work and the latches and all the type of stuff that be. I'll be there. There'll be 20 gates that need major works on out of 52. Makes me nervous.
Councillor Williamson had something.
Look, we brought this up at our meetings on Wednesdays, pretty regular every time. It's probably going to do the levy bank where we are. It could be $1 million project. You just don't know where it's going to end up. But when we built levy bank back 20 odd years ago, it was a 221 funding, which everyone knows. So the 221 funding was two government, state and federal, and Warren Shire had to borrow. It was a $10 million project, and we borrowed $2 million, I'm pretty sure, from our, close to $2 million from our managing finance.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sure now that long ago.
I think it was very, very close to $2 million. So with every chance we've got with the government agencies, that's one of our priorities, what we bring up, is about trying to get money to do the job. And that's the biggest thing we're chasing at the moment, is the money side. But as Riley said, it is a priority. We take it as a priority when we talk every Wednesday.
And it's been raised to state level. Because, it's been raised at all levels. Yeah. It's been raised at all levels, emergency levels, emergency management, and all those classes of levels. We are seeking assistance, right, for financial purposes, because it's going to be a massive cost. I would pick a figure out of the sky and say, to do the work that I'm aware of that's needed, it'll be close to $4 million. Can I ask the General Manager then, isn't this on the list of Crown lands that we're going to take over as operational land. Did I see that on your list, levy banks? So we're going to own this problem outright very shortly if we don't get a bit of traction on this.
Manage this, not manage.
Mr Mayor, we've always been responsible for levy banks, and the reason they're listed is they're a community asset and we must classify them either community operations. So we can't sell a levy bank, so it's always going to be community. But we've had control of those, and all the old levy banks are still listed in that when we get to that item as well, across Carter Oval where it used to go. So we've got to clean all those up. But they're always our asset, and as the divisional manager has indicated, we are chasing funding, we are chasing people, and I have authorised him to go and find a suitable consultant to help him on this and on other projects, other areas he needs, because we're just not getting applicants for positions that are advertised. But it is on the list. It's just getting the right person to come in and do the work.
Just quickly through you, Mr Mayor, would it be worth, like you've done in the past, you know, you have a fund, have a levy bank fund where, you know, like the building, you know, sunset for the council to, so you don't have to scramble to find $4 million or, and it's an ongoing works. I mean, you know, we're coming to the stage now where we're going, oh, it's panic stations when maybe if you had it as an ongoing and had the money put away, because as you say, it's here and it's very important for the town.
There was a levy maintenance program that was undertaken for a period of time that seems to have lapsed somehow in the structures and people moving on, etc. And it has fallen down. But there used to be an ongoing thing. So there's one of the things that we need to get it obviously the levy bank's not back up to speed, but then the maintenance program.
And the money is put us.
So the Mayor just statement in your financial statements, depreciation is what we're talking about. We do not fund depreciation to that extent, but you would have to realise that lots of things go if you're going to fund through depreciation of your assets.
Okay. Awareness level high, councillors. There's been no further discussion. We're happy to remove those minutes of the next meeting held Tuesday.
Can I ask one small question? And I do apologise for the lateness. The cleaner, casual cleaner, what are we cleaning?
Vacancy.
Oh, okay. Well,
and under council's previous resolution, unless it was a critical vacancy, so the manager asked the manager could they replace the cleaner?
Okay. Yep, fine.
But then, in case no further questions, with that, those minutes meetings, next meeting minutes. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to the delegates' reports. The first of those being the Women's Agency Support Service Committee, the one held on the 21st November. Someone to move that. Councillor Irving, second. Councillor Derrick, Councillor Irving.
Just want to highlight, we wrote 2 letters on behalf of the Interagency Committee to Wendy Beatson and Pauline. They finished their roles as members of the Interagency Committee, and we appreciated their input for such a long time, as like up to 5-6 years or so. So that was done at acknowledged at our November meeting, and yeah, I think that's probably pretty much on that one, because I can expand more on the following minutes. So.
Thank you. None further on the first Interagency Committee, Councillor Certainty.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just one quick one with regards to that bus service between Nev and Warren.
Yeah.
You're still not getting any closer. You're not getting any ticket any boxes.
I can talk about that one in the next item Or we did
Yep,
it
no,
in
we'll
the
do it.
February from the February meeting?
The second, the third meeting, 30
It's more
February, more
recent.
topical up to date.
Yeah,
That's
oh, Councillor Walker.
Okay, no further discussion on the first interagency support services meeting. That was the one held on the 21st of November. I'll put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to item 2 in the reports of the delegates, that being the second of the Warren Interagency Support Service meetings, held on the 13th of February, moved by Councillor Irving, second, Councillor Walker. Councillor Irving.
Yeah, so there are just 5 items of, that are more significant or relevance for us today. And I'll let Councillor Walker speak on the transport one, but the Hear Our Heart e-bus is coming back to Warren. There was a bit of a break, and we're pretty excited that Hear Our Heart e-bus is funded through a foundation, a philanthropic foundation, and they're able to fund audiologists to come to Warren regularly. So we're at the moment talking to the MPHS and schools and so on to find out what day suits them, and they can work out from the MPHS. Or they do come to schools and the little possums and preschool already, but this allows for them to fill in any other gaps that might be existing in terms of testing hearing for children. The HSNet, there was a webinar yesterday I participated in. It's through the Department of Communities and Justice. It's a free service for us to harness. The support agencies can utilise it to promote their service, but also network with other services. So it's free. Hoping to promote that throughout this year to get as many of our services onto that. It's a great database, and we can focus on Warren as a group. And so the other item I'd like to put on is on the 1st and 2nd of April, we have representatives coming from Western Area Health to seek community input to the 10-year plan for Warren MPHS. If anyone can make it, it's going to be held in the afternoon of the 1st of April and then of the morning of the 2nd of April at the Sporting Cultural Centre in the downstairs carpeted area. And I think what was of significance was that we are losing some of our medical services in Warren, and then we do want to maybe even get them back, like the dialysis service that we had. We lost that last year. We want to make sure that we don't lose any more or even get that back. So if anyone can make that meeting and support those that are going, I'll just, yeah. So the other 2 items would be okay if I pass over to Councillor Walker. There's the letter of support that you wrote for a grant application, and also the transport issue.
I think the transport issue, Pauline, that you brought up between Nevertire Warren, we were going to get a person from Young Life to try and do the bus, but they've sort of folded in a way because of people leaving. I'm trying to get an appointment with Belinda Roberts. I wasn't here, unfortunately, when she came to the December meeting or whatever. I'd like to just talk to her to get it clear in my head, the proposal that she's putting up. It's because it involves council, which I mightn't like. I don't know yet, but I've contacted her, and hopefully she'll get back to me, and we can meet and I'll talk about it. I will keep at it because I gather it's an important issue with some people that just can't get from Nevertire to Warren, and that shouldn't be happening. And she's very happy to have a sort of a trial period, as she calls it, 1 day or 2 days. Friday seems to be, she said, the day when it's most needed. So we could trial it and see what the numbers are and go from there. And there's money out there. And the next round is probably July though, so gives a bit of time to hopefully get something up and moving. So that's all I can tell you. So, but I will keep following it.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Any further discussion on the whether the Warren Integrated Support Services and their meeting on the 13th of February? No further discussion. We'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Councillor, I think we want to adjourn the meeting at this stage. I think we welcome members of the Steggles and the Carter family to our meeting. We've had a chat with. Now we'll resume our council meeting. We'll move on to the report, the no policy reports. The reports of the general manager, item 1, which is the outstanding reports checklist. Would someone like to move that? Councillor Surgery, second Councillor Irving. Councillor Surgery.
I think we can answer more questions as they've been going along, so thank you. Just moving
Once we meet the management engineering services, both those pumps and Oxley Park operating now? No. Okay. Thank you. Anything else on item 1 of the outstanding reports checklist?
We're going to make a priority the shade structure pool. Well, we've got to wait for a grant, but yeah, there's just been concerns about the exposure of lack of shade at the pool. So yeah, we'll just get onto that. That's all.
That's part of the master plan process. It uses what they want, rather than just put something that might have to come down.
Anything else on the outstanding reports checklist before we put that?
Running through you, Mr. Mayor, the one Bobby, the tenders went out. Have you had success with that?
Coming through you, the tenders have been out for about a fortnight. They close on the 12th next month. We had an on-site meeting with the compulsory on-site meeting yesterday on site with the proposed tenders. There were 9 likelies in attendance. As usual, if we get 75% of those people to put in applications, that's fine. Okay. Come to site, just not really.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else on the outstanding reports checklist? That being the case, put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. We'll go on to item 2 of the general manager's reports, the committee and delegates meetings. Someone happy to move those? Thank you, Councillor Sturdy. Second, Councillor Bruce. Councillor Sturdy.
Can I, if possible, change the future meeting for, and it's on the original, the first list that we go in and
It's started. Yep.
It's the Elbacart board meeting. It's not going to be the 16th, it's going to be the 30th, 2 weeks later. We're just having troubles trying to get our audited papers through.
Right.
So I can just move it 2 weeks later.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I just wish to add one, Economic Development Committee meeting. We've got a couple of requests for information that come to that committee, so people want to go, you'll get in contact with
Anything else on item 2 of the general manager report regarding those to change the date for Outback Arts and the addition of the Economic Development Committee meeting with a date to be forwarded to those committee members? Being the case, no further questions, additions? Put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. We've gone to item 3, the general manager's report. This is to do with the new council additional meeting date. Someone happy to move that recommendation? Councillor Brewer. Councillor Brewer.
I'd ask a question of the general manager, if he's put this forward, I suspect. We had the affirmation before the council meeting, the first meeting last time. Can you just explain to us what's advantageous about this, other than shortening that day?
Mr. Mayor, all it's really doing is setting the time for the mayoral election. If you can't have the mayoral election until you say the affirmation or the oath, so really it's just and from my perspective, if you're a new councillor or an existing councillor, you bring your family and friends along. It's quite an important occasion, your first meeting, and that should be the only business on it, rather than come in and have to say the oath or the affirmation, then move into a full-blown council meeting. It gives time for councillors to have a talk to each other, see what each other's like. You know, it's just a slow transition into the real first meeting, which is 3 days later.
And those who couldn't make that, of course, would have another opportunity before the council meeting. Okay.
Not a good start.
All the alternative business from now, that if you don't say it, you miss your first meeting, or the second, or the 10th, or the, because you can't be sacked as a councillor, but you can't attend the meeting if you don't go through with it.
You have to get all kind of private.
Okay.
Never private.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Mayor, that's a relevant question. Yes, you can do it with general manager privately, as long as we know all the paperwork. It's just one of those things that if everyone stands up and says the same thing at the same time, it's easier.
Any further questions or comments on item 3 regarding a new council meeting prior to the actual discussion of business 3 days later? So that's proposed for the 21st of September. The council meeting on the 24th, Monday the 21st. No further discussion, feedback? All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to item 4 of the report of the General Manager, and that deals with the Warren Shire Council Workforce Plan and the strategy, and in brackets, drought conditions. We've workshopped this. I don't know if there's someone who would be prepared to move this for a start, the recommendation. And then I might defer just to the General Manager for any further comments. Someone move it. Councillor Walker. Second. Councillor Surtees. Councillor Walker,
Yes,
just to go through the process here, that how this would happen in terms of the recommendation involving the unions and the workforce, and how it all will fit, so that we're quite clear.
That's no problem.
Mr. Mayor, the workforce plan itself isn't any different to the last workforce plan the council adopted. Really, there were a couple of changes in the graphs that were inside as to the age of our staff, things like that, and the percentage of male and females. That were the changes. Our outcomes that we're still proposing: training staff, improving our workforce, having a modern skill is still there, still remains. None of that changed. What did change in there, and council would recognise it, is that we're coming back to 2 directors or 2 divisional manager positions that report directly to the general manager. There are changes in reporting status for other positions, so environmental services will report through the divisional manager for engineering services, and there's just a coordination of work in that area, because there's a lot of the work that's being done in waste management and around those asset areas is being undertaken by engineering or with assistance through both sections. There's some changes in there that move towards recognition that some staff members are going to retire, and it's to get the skill set in prior to those retirements and the passing on of that knowledge as well. One of the ones that came up this morning was the hierarchical plan. Under the local government award, when it was established back in 1993, was it set criteria that a staff member who is paid at A level should be able to undertake these roles and have those skills. If they don't have those skills, well then part of the award is council must skill that person up. By sticking with a hierarchical plan, it pigeonholes a person that that person, one, doesn't learn the skills to move to a higher level or a different position in council. And two, it also stops management from using the skills a person has to do a range of jobs. So it's come back to what the award originally established. And that's really what the whole award is, and the award's been fought over now in the commission, and it's all about multi-skilling of staff, and the pushes that the unions are going through is to get more staff to higher levels of pay through multi-skilling, and that's what this workforce plan comes back to. There is no staff member that will lose out by the change in this plan. No one's been downgraded, no one is being paid any less. It gives them the opportunity, which we will work on and will come to council at some stage in the next 12 months, changes in how a staff member can actually progress with that knowledge and be paid more money. Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. The number of staff, due to the policy that we currently have, resolution of council that we don't employ people unless it's a critical position through this drought period, has worked extremely well in that we have not forced any person to take any annual leave or long service leave. So we've been able to have our workforce functioning to a very high level, but we do get natural transition of staff out of the organisation. They either go and find a better job, they retire, or they just leave for whatever reason. And our old workforce plan had maximum staff. Remember, these plans determine the maximum number that general managers can employ. We can't employ more than what you tell us. It had 80 people. This plan comes back to 70.6 people. So there's some shared positions in there, and some of them are legislative, such as the new audit officer that we're required to have by law. They're shared positions, hence the reason we have 0.66 staff. In this, we come back, by being at 70, and I reported before, we currently have 62 staff. So we're already below 70. It allows me as general manager to employ up to 70 people over the next 18 months. And the reason said that is, one, it gives us a figure to work to. It makes sure that we train our staff to be multi-skilled. It also doesn't overcommit the community to funding staff positions that may not have effective or long-term work. And the changes in staff numbers have been right across the board. So they have occurred in environmental services, they have occurred in administration, they have occurred in engineering. And some of those staff members you will know that have left, and you think that they might be critical positions, but through retraining of staff, for instance, in RMS, the position that went out of RMS is now being covered by 3 people, because 3 people are now skilled up and being paid accordingly for that increase in skill. The service level hasn't dropped, it's actually improved, because we don't have days of shutdown, because we've now got multiple staff to man. And that's what we're really looking at, is having good staff that can do a broad range of jobs and can step up and do that right across the board. So by coming back to 70 at this stage, as the drought continues, we don't believe that we need additional staff past that point. Once the drought breaks, grant monies come in. Yes, I believe, well, the next council must review it by September 2021. That's a legal requirement. So then the council can determine if you need more staff than what the 70 is. So it's not saying you can't ever go back up, but it's a council determination rather than me saying, well, I've got 18 vacancies now, I'll just employ 18 people, and which may not have productive work.
Thank you. Question, Councillor Doyle.
2 questions. how do we determine critical and non-critical roles? And is that some of those will happen if, you know, at a needs basis, but when you identify critical roles, that only happen once the person leaves. You say, oh, that was critical, and then do you then go and re-employ, or do you identify those critical roles before they go?
Mr. Mayor, there are a number of critical roles that are identified, and you know, we do have vacancies in them, and especially in engineering. So our engineers, we're not getting applicants for those, but they're critical. One, because even though we're in drought, the work still has to be planned and budgeted, and you know, we should have a work plan rolling forward, not trying to catch up to what the budget expenditure is. So they're critical and they're vacant. We talked, a question was asked about a cleaner. It's then up to the staff member to come and have a talk really at Mannix and say, well, you know, I need a cleaner, and it's a casual cleaner, this one, so that we can meet our commitment to the community. So yes, to me that's critical and I'd approve it. If, for instance, the manager of engineering came to me and said, I need 2 labourers, my first question would be, well, what are they going to do? And he'll have some reason. I'll go, so what are they going to do next week and the week after? And can our current staff do that job, or can we delay it so that it's done within the current staff numbers rather than overpopulate our staff? So some become critical, you know, because we don't have it. If we had a grader driver leave, I'm sure that if the question was asked, can we replace that grader driver? We would, but we'd look in-house first to see if we could train someone up while it's not in full use. And then when we've gone back to teams being out there, well, presently that person's trained up to then get on and do a full day's job and keep going. So you look at it slightly differently. You know, it just depends which position leaves and what their current role is, and can you retrain someone else to do it, or do they have capacity to do it? So.
And the other one connected to that same point is, I mentioned it before, but how do we know when we're not in drought anymore? When it's time to go back to another workforce plan?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I think we've got to make that assessment that what's going to happen is, as we come out of drought, there'll be more and more requests for work to be undertaken. So if I look at the building industry's dead flat. To be totally honest, I don't need another building surveyor because I don't have any work for them to go and do. If the building industry starts to pick up, yes, we need another building surveyor, you know, and it starts to work like that. If it continues to rain, we've got 4 grader teams out there now, and they're fully staffed, so we don't have any vacancies in those teams. You know, they're going to be flat out all the time, so that means we'll have other people going to help resource them. We may then need to get some labourers in, or some people at the middle skill level to come in and do some of those other jobs. Same with Parks and Gardens. Parks and Gardens have been mowing dust for 12 months. Now it's raining. These guys are absolutely flat out, but if it doesn't rain in the next month, they're going to be back to mowing dust. So it's a balance of watching what our commitments are to the community and just looking at it logically. And the truth is that we need to slowly build up. We're no different to any other business in town. We've got to slowly build up to the point we need to be at, not over, you know, sort of capitalise our staff at the moment, you know, for things that may happen, because they may not.
Can I just ask a question for you, Mr. Mayor? You're in communication with other councils around this region and the job sharing. I mean, if you can see you need an engine, and when things might start to pick up a bit, keep them in the loop and say, look, if you're looking for one, yeah, do we communicate and see what we can do?
Mr. Mayor, I have regular communication with the GMs around us. I know there were statements made on Facebook that the totally incorrect, because I know some of our other councils have dismissed staff because they haven't had work. They've restructured their workforce plans and they have forced staff to go on extended leave. We haven't done that. And the restructure is just to come back to the real, that's 70 now. As for shared services, there's a couple of positions in there. One's a HR position that was in the last workforce plan. To me, it's got to be shared. We can't afford a full-time person. I think that would be a waste of resources because we don't have the work. You know, and ultimately it ends up on my desk anyway. The new audit position, the person who's going to sit at my right hand and tell me everything that's wrong, yeah, well, that's probably one day a month. So it should be a shared position as well. And we can share that legally. You know, again, you don't put on a full-time person because, one, we can't afford the price tag that comes with these things, but two, there's really no work there for them. So general managers meet regularly and we discuss lots of HR issues and how things are going. I can tell you none of us have any engineers, and that includes Dubbo. They can't attract engineers. Cobar is trying to attract a director at the moment, no applicants. They're out for their third time now with no applicants. So there's some positions that they're going to get tougher and tougher to fill, and you know, somewhere along the line we've got to make a decision, and that may be through, you know, sharing an engineer with another council. You know, you're not going to get true value out of that person, but at least you might have someone to get some work. So, you know, we've just got to look at our workforce totally different, and that's across the board. You know, our staff that work outdoors are much the same to get the skill levels we need for the future. You know, they're going to become more and more difficult as well.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Any further questions on the workforce plan and strategy? Councillor Williamson?
That's one question. The old force plan had 80 people in it, but by memory, I don't think we've been 80 people for a long time. In that system, I reckon we might have been 73 maybe, ages and ages ago. So we're not really taking people's jobs away what we do with this workforce plan. It's actually, the 70 people probably where we've been for the last few years. So we're only bringing it in line. You say that, Mr. General Manager?
Mr. Mayor, I believe we had 76 at one stage, which included, when you add up all the casuals we had. But as part of our past resolution, we took away all our casual staff, except for permanent casuals such as cleaners, swimming pool attendants, you know, a library assistant, where they're permanent casuals. Yeah, all other casuals went, they gave it up to about 76 from memory. So, you know, and again, as you become more efficient, you know, you've got better machines and things like that, you become more efficient. You know, you can't retain the same number of staff. No business can do that.
Any further questions for the General Manager before we move towards putting that motion regarding the workforce plan? No further questions, I'll put that. All those in favour, recommendation, against, carried. Moving on to item 5 of the General Manager's report, that's the delivery program progress report. Looking for a mover for that. Councillor Irving, second. Councillor Walker, Councillor Irving.
I just want to, happy to move, but I just want to clarify, it's page 30 on the document. It's in the blue section. And it's item, it's 5.13. I just was concerned that we think that we are really good at this bit. Promote timely and quality dissemination of information. I think I'm getting feedback from the community that we're not doing a good job on that, and I'm a bit concerned that maybe we could put that as a yellow, because in particular, I guess there are examples of where we've received letters from the public, and then if we had communicated first, and we wouldn't have received a letter from the public. So I just wondered if we can look at maybe not thinking that, oh, yeah, we've made it with communication, but it's an ongoing improvement. Like that's why we had our communications workshop. We're just moving forward on the policy still there. I guess it's, I think that, you know, if it stays green, then just still acknowledge that it's not like we can't improve, you know. That's what I'm thinking. Other than happy to move, but
thank you, Councillor Irving. Councillor Taylor?
Comment on that, I agree with Councillor Irving. I did bring a document back from Tenterfield Shire Council and go to their General Manager in the last week or two, and they put out a monthly letter, I suppose, folder thing, and just tells us everything that's going on every month. Every person in that shire knows what's going on in council. It covers a lot of areas, and I think the General Manager still has that, and I just suggested that we follow those same lines. But that's up for determination, I guess. The reason I say we aren't making a thing because, yeah, I certainly get people just don't know what's going on. I think that this, how they do it up there, I don't know, but it comes via the mail. I don't know what the cost and how they do it, but yeah, if we could do that.
I also support what's been said by both, and I have put it out there a few times that, you know, I used to look forward to before I was a councillor, just to have a look at the mayoral column. I mean, I really think it should come out every week, and it hasn't been occurring like that. It just, you don't have to put anything substantial, maybe just little snippets, a bit like the page, just what is going on out there, and keep people up to date. And because I get people asking what's going on too, and they talk and they get the wrong impression. So put them straight to start with, and some of this mightn't happen, that we're getting stuff on Facebook and being put out around the community.
Any further comments, questions on item 5 of the General Manager's report? Program progress report. That being the case, put that, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to the reports of the General Manager of Administration. The first one of those is the reconciliation report. We've got a couple of these to get through. So the first one is the November 19 reconciliation certificate. I'm going to move that. Councillor Brewer. Second, Councillor Walker. Councillor Brewer.
We found a possible typo error in the first internal ledger account reconciliation. The investment bank account is 11 million sum and 63 cents in that column. On the investments reconciliation, there's 6 and the 3 are reversed. It's not a big deal, but it is inconsistent. Do you see what I mean, Darren? Yeah. See your investments reconciliation table, the bank accounts. The very top on there, 414,636 and 36 cents. It should be 63 cents.
Oh.
Yes.
And that's, sorry, it's pedantic, but it's just a typo putting the page together, I suspect. Other than that, that's all I really have.
I'm on the bottom line, right?
Just in relation to the Management Finance Administration on that November 2019 reconciliation, you paid 101 extra water fund. Was that, do you have
The only thing I would guess Mr. Mayor would be still doing the water to the airport.
Okay.
3 months ago now.
Yeah, no, that's right. No, yeah, and then I do add on further ones as water, as money come back into the water fund, and yeah, that fine, thank you. Okay, any further questions on item 1 of the Manager and Finance Administration's report? November reconciliation. Put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to item 2 of the Manager and Finance Administration report, the December reconciliation certificate. Looking for a mover for that. Councillor Derrick, thank you. You nearly nodded. Councillor Bruce. Councillor Derrick.
Careful me to move recommendation, thank you.
I was getting nailed it, Councillor Derrick. Sorry, you started to move and that was ample. Any questions or comments on item 2? Manager Finance Administration report. Being those put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Item 3 of the Division Manager Finance Administration report there, the January 2020 reconciliation certificate. Mover, Councillor Sergi, Councillor Derrick. Councillor Sergi.
Just with the recommendation, thank you.
No questions, comments? Put that. All those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to item 4. Reading the statement of rates and annual charges as at the 13th of February, so that's been just right up to date. Someone having to move that? Councillor Sergi, Councillor Walker, Councillor Sergi.
No, it's good to see you keeping up there. Thank you.
Questions, comments? Being nothing, with that. All those in favour? Against, carried. Moving on to item 5, which pertains to the new land values, the rating valuations. Someone happy to move that recommendation, the information be received and noted. Councillor Brewer, Councillor Walker, Councillor Brewer.
Moving the recommendation, but making comment about clarity for the paper. Can the General Manager, if required, make a clear statement, or no, General Manager will do a clear statement about what this means, so that readers of this document understand that just because your rates or your land value has increased by a significant amount, it makes almost no difference to your rateable value. And we workshop this, and we're all kept calm over the whole business, but we did say at the time we need a statement that's clear and unambiguous so that people don't spin out. Because everyone's got these letters in their mailboxes in the last few weeks and may compare and go, what, I've got a 50% increase in my rates coming, that's crazy, but that's not the case.
Absolutely taken on board. I think we can probably
be a wonderful newsletter, Mr. Mayor, to go with the rates. Let's see if we could get one.
When's our next race? That's going out.
Mine was due today.
Okay, happy to do. We need to do something. Yes, I agree entirely, Councillor Brewer.
What it is, maybe.
What is our best way? I think the manager of the Finance Administration can put it succinct.
Such a good job at the workshop, after all.
Yes, he did. He navigated that way through it very clearly.
Mr. Mayor.
I'm not sure through Miss Smith it was, I didn't understand it, but it was probably very well explained. I was a little bit bamboozled. Still bamboozled. I do now because it's now been written in here. Yeah, but that's not, I'm not the community. I'm just, you know, they probably should know also.
Darren, you have to put something together there.
I thought it was language too, but obviously it wasn't. I was probably looking at the stage of farmland rate went up by more than 57.31%. We'll pay more if it went up by 7.31%, it's probably stay the same.
Yeah, I think that's.
Well, I have developed a spreadsheet which I've given to Shire and Bill downstairs. If anyone want to bring it up, we can punch the old land value, the new land value, will tell you the big difference. I'll put some sort of calculator on the website, people that maybe I don't know how you got that side of it.
Can I ask Audrey what her thoughts are on this, rather than burst into print and get it wrong? Whether or not, Audrey, you understand what we're talking about here?
Well, having not been at the meeting before, my understanding is that yes, every 3 years there's a review of land valuation, and the sum some people's land has increased significantly in value, and we're frightened that people will think, oh, my rates are going to go up. So you just want to reassure people that whilst their land values have gone up, their rates are not going to go up.
Oh, no, not almost. If it hasn't gone up by if it's gone up by more than the average.
I think we're getting away from
Okay.
a little.
I
So
think
like the communication, Chair, I love that.
it was a very good
Yes.
summary.
Yeah.
Yes, excellent. No, except for the.
No, that's good within the confines of what we can do as a meeting. If we can't ask questions.
I asked that the GM liaise with media then to make sure the message is clear and not ambiguous. Like we all
You can
struggle
ask
with.
I think the last, what you've put down here, dear, or who's it, that multiply the new land value, blah, 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 is a pretty much succinct. And I mean, and most people out on the land probably have a bit of an idea anyway.
Yes.
You know, they've seen this before, we've been there
Pretty much from there, basically,
before.
for farmland, which is the main one.
Yeah.
If they multiply by that point, below 3.2, that'll give them what they will be paying based on that, and they can just subtract the other one from what they actually paid. But I was going to try and do a map up to say where roughly they're all over the place, but basically down where Councillor Bruce is and around a little bit area, they're the ones that are going to be impacted the most. I just thought I'd put that out there. Because on the-
Have you looked?
they've got between 90 and 100% in the area.
I did this.
Thank you, Councillor. So we're happy following that discussion that the General Manager and the Finance Administration put some clarity around this concept and liaise with the media so that there's some clarity about what's actually happening.
Good.
Okay. Any further comments, questions regarding the new rate values? Sorry, the land values, not what leads into the rate values. Nothing else? We'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to item 6 of the main finance administration's report there, the Order of New South Wales Management Letter. So I have to move that. Councillor Walker, second. Councillor Irving, Councillor Walker.
Oh, happy to move the recommendation.
I think the one thing that probably should come to light in terms of our previous discussion was how contractors would be engaged in the panel. I wonder if I might just defer to the Managing Finance Administration on that one. What was what's the panel called again, Brian? We might just,
Through Mr. Mayor.
so that everyone understands how procurement and things are going potentially to happen. Sorry, I haven't got a second for the motion. Did I get a second? That's right. Right. Sorry.
We're looking at paying a subscription. With the panel, yeah. That basically we can set up our own little hub and invite our local contractors and things to come in and join. Also, it's got all the state government contracts on it and things like that. So we have our own portal, so anyone that's able to purchase can log into the portal, put a request out for whatever it might be. It might be hire of trucks for 3 weeks, commencing this date to this date. Please submit booklet to us. So it'll go into a fixed box up until the date that you sign off on your tender. Then you can download that. You can set your tenders and go for whichever tender you want to from there. So that can be from anything from electrical contractors to plumbers to anything that we want, which then will for ICAP and for all the probity issue, take it out of our control and make sure we're doing the right thing. Because we're going out into an external marketplace with asked for tenders. If we get no responses back, then we've had to look at probably other avenues where we have to put a capital and solar and things like that. So that $5,000 one that we talked about in the Shire Racecourse Committee, if the local contractor registers with vendor panel when it's up for Warren Shire, he would automatically get an email saying there's a request for whatever, fencing, hire of trucks, hire of dozers, whatever it may be. But it will take a few months to get all the locals, we want all the locals in there, so they've got the opportunity. but it just takes out that here's your mate here and here's your mate there, and just offering them the work or whatever it may be. But if it's all then sent back into the portal, no one can access, you can't even access the portal if it's closed, and then all the information is then disseminated out to the person. So we're looking at wanting to do that, and I think it was a one-off cost, was $5,000 and $1,000 a year for maintenance. I think take out all these other issues, I think it's probably well worth going down that road.
So,
One
question,
question,
yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. So who accesses that? You and the General Manager?
Whoever's got authority to order, you know, so obviously Julian's got the highest end, management engineering myself, but also the storeman, you know, so he orders a lot of stuff down at the store. The workshop coordinator could go to the storeman and say, look, I need you to source some parts for me or whatever it may be. Storeman could log in, but you can have a lot of logins, but you don't want too many email access. You want probably the main people, but I mean, when it comes down to store items or items for other things, you still want to be probably.
That's unlimited, whatever the tender, doesn't matter what the price, and now these
You're
little
not actually
guys.
going to tender, you're sourcing quotes.
Yeah, sourcing quotes.
And as per our procurement policy, I think it's over $10,000, we must source 3 quotes anyway. By going through here, you automatically sort of circumventing that. Whether you get 3 quotes in or not is beside the point. You've gone out and you ask for them. If they don't submit them, then only get 2 quotes in. And you've still gone through and you can prove the process that you've actually done it. So it just, you know, it'll saves your ICAC, any ICAC investigations and things like that. And it's all been developed in consultation with ICAC and all this and everything that's been going on in other councils.
We call tenders or advertise for expressions of interest for all our plant item services that each year. This is from the much better.
And they have to put their insurances in there to make sure that they're already qualified, and then they don't have to go and ask for their insurance for public liability works. But it will take a little bit to get the locals on board.
Yeah, my question is, does it cost a local contractor or a contractor to be involved with that? And can they join at any time if they haven't done it? Okay, excellent.
And the people at vendor panel are more than willing to one-on-one with each contractor. If they have problems.
Through Mr Mayor, I'm just also, who does make the final decision? Who gets the quote? Who you accept to do the job? I just wonder if you need 2 people for this.
Is local haulage when we're using the local blokes now. I mean, if we can probably get cheaper trucks in Sydney, right? But if they come out here, they're not going to want to work out here. So we're better off shopping with the locals as long as they're registered with this crowd and there's all the insurances covered. We don't have to chase all that stuff up. Everything's registered. State cover or statewide insurances used to do a similar thing. And what was that called then?
That was the risk management.
Yeah, it's all right.
I think you're absolutely right. We streamline that process.
Yeah, I'm only asking that question because I've gathered, you know, you look at some of these other things, you need 2 people to make the decision, just to make it, well, it's, you know, for compliance and for later down the track.
It's all subject to individuals' delegation. So when I give them delegations, they get an expenditure. If I go to the other end of the table, there's a delegation there of $500. So if it's $600, you cannot make that decision. You cannot even go out and order $600 if your delegation's $500. You've got to then step up to the next person. So there's checks and balances all the way through. It's like quite often I sign these 2 guys stuff because they've gone over their delegation. So it's got to come to me and then they've got to explain why.
Okay.
So there are checks and balances, and that's the important thing, which what you're saying. If it's a tender, there's a whole set of regulations around the tender and having people in and how we deal with tenders. So Poppy Bridge, for instance, they will be opened with 2 people. It will be fully recorded. There may be 3 or 4 people sit down on the assessment of that to make sure it's fair and even. You know. So it just depends on what it is.
Right, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is all to do with probably looking, well, not looking, actually achieving some real clarity about how decisions have been made and how people are engaged, so that it's all very clear. There's a pathway. There's no question of impropriety along the way. And that's what we're working through. And that's what we've brought to our attention, and all these questions have been answered in the management letter. Okay. Any further questions before we put that? All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to item 7. Can we report to the Finance Administration, and that being the letter from the Warren Museum and Gallery Association. Someone, Councillor Williamson.
Can I just suspend the trading standing orders for a second? And I'd like to put in recommendation that if people agree, we go back to normal council, just in case we've got a discussion.
Yes, I'll second it.
Look, this whole system is very similar to the WOW Centre. A lot of years ago, we went into the WOW Centre every time they come back and do we wanted this, a lot of argy-bargy and a lot of discontented people over a lot of years. And we finally went in one of those whatever it is. Sorry? We went through one of them. I really think this is a bit early for us to get in one of these. A couple of reasons. Haven't got the building yet. Haven't got the grant funding yet. I think if you're going to put a recommendation in, it'll be something very similar. Once the building and the grant funding all comes through, we sit down and go through a proper memorandum, whatever. I'll pronounce it. This is very, very early stages of this. I think they're coming with a lot bigger list than what's on this one.
But it doesn't commit us, an MOU doesn't commit us to funds. They may need the MOU to support their bids to get the money in the first instance. Have we considered that? And I hear you and I'm sympathetic to what you're saying, but it doesn't commit us to anything, does it? We just say, we understand what you're up to.
They have applied for a grant. So our project team have helped them put together things to apply for a grant.
We can put caveats in that, say, if you don't get the money, this all sort of falls on people.
My view is with Councillor Williamson, in that they're getting in front of themselves. Let's see what actually happens. You know, we're committing to potentially 13 grand a year insurance plus rates.
So I would query that for you.
Which one?
3 million, based on the value of 3 million. Where'd they get it from?
I think it's called insurance program.
Yeah, I mean, the value of 3 million, it's probably double what they need.
Oh, shit, sorry. Well, we don't know. No, I think that's you basically saying. I believe that's the problem. We don't know what we're doing with yet. You know, I think we need to just step back for a little bit. Let's see where they go. In terms of successfulness with that grant funding, if they get it, you know, work towards the building, then we can consider it in time. This doesn't have to be done now.
Actually, Mr. Mayor, number 3 concerns me.
Yeah, what she buys.
How much money?
Open checkbook.
Okay,
So can we amend the resolution to say that
the recommendation is it's just submitted for council's consideration and determination. So it's very open-ended. So that means we can.
our answer, our determination is not yet?
Yes. Yep. Excellent. So if we want to reinstate standing orders,
Reassess the recommendation, to reassess the
Memorandum of understanding.
reassess your request for a memorandum of understanding if the grant is successful.
That's correct,
If
yes.
the grant is successful. Yep. Let's reinstate standing orders. Do that. Councillor Williamson, are you happy to reinstate standing orders?
Yep.
Councillor Williamson, happy? Yep. Yes. Councillor Williamson has a motion. That.
Yes, what you just said. I'll let you read it.
Council consider, reconsider, council consider a memorandum of understanding if and when grant funding for Warren Museum and Gallery is successful. Yeah, and advise that the association. I'm happy with that wording.
Can I please just ask the MOU?
I think we just need a second for that
Oh,
first.
sorry.
Councillor Taylor seconding that. And you happy? Glenn? Yep. Councillor Walker has a question.
I'm just going to say what there are. I can't remember, but the MOU for the WOW Centre, it would be it could be very similar. I can't remember. Is that insurance involved with the WOW Centre?
Mr. Mayor, the MOU with the WOW Centre has a total value of 6,500. But again, that's similar basis. We support them in grant applications, we support them in other ways that grow and develop. This person would get follow up in that.
Thank you.
We've had enough discussion on that matter. I think the case will put the motion. I just might get the general manager to read out again because it's not there in front of us. And the recommendation is that
Council consider an MOU if and when grant funding for a museum, gallery, art gallery is successful, and council advise the Foreign Museum and Gallery Association of this decision.
okay. Everyone happy with that? Yep, that being case, put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to item 8 of the Division Manager Finance Administration report, that being the December budget review. Someone happy to move that? Councillor Irving, seconded. Councillor Thurby. Councillor Irving.
We did go over it at the workshop. That was really helpful. Thank you. So I'm happy to move that.
Thank you, Councillor Irving. Any questions, comments, Councillor Irving? No, we have discussed this at the workshop. Anything since that time that anyone needs to understand? That being the case, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Moving on to item 9 of the librarian report on operations of the library. Councillor Surge is moving that. Seconder, Councillor Irving. Councillor Surge.
Yeah, it's pretty much all there. For those of you, as she mentioned in there, that we've now got the canopy hat, which means you can watch free movies without to watch Netflix, which is good. And she's mentioned about the Julian Campbell Slice of Life collection launch, which will be at the next meeting. Teddy bear sleepovers are usually pretty good, so you never know what the Teddy's ended up to this year. They've been working with the people once and ended up in all sorts of weird places. Yeah, and Steve is the author, so look forward to some interesting stuff happening. The tech-savvy workshops are really pretty good. Borrowbox is good. We get a lot of good variety out of that. And we still have a lot of things happening with seniors and workshops with seniors. And like the last one I went to was a Cromley workshop, so I was probably the worst person there because I couldn't tie him up to say goodnight. But yes, so if you ever go, don't ask me to tie it up again. It won't happen. So but yeah, it's good. There's a lot of things happening, which is really good to see. Good numbers. Well used. Yeah, well used.
Very good. Thank you. Any further comments, questions before we move that? We have to move the report of the librarian on the operation of the Shire Council Library. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on report of the Divisional Manager of Engineering Services, and one item to discuss there that the additional allocation of the 2020 Race to Recovery program to the Nevertire, east of the off the highway Nevertire. Someone having to move that recommendation. Councillor Williamson, seconded. Councillor Garrett. Councillor Williamson.
No, just moving the recommendation, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, so this was well flagged, and what it does, I believe, is tidies up the whole potential Nevertire situation. Sensible use of funds that were going to otherwise not be utilised. I thank the Manager of Engineering Services for at least thinking ahead and getting in, and we hate giving money away back. Yeah. No, but we will utilise them and tidy up that whole area, so that's yeah. Thank you. So, anything else on item 1 for the Division of Engineering Services report? No? All happy? The indication put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to reports of the General Manager of Health and Development. First one today is the Community Participation Program. Councillor Irving, you'd like to move this one? Councillor Irving, you want to move that? Seconder? Councillor Joyce. Councillor Irving.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that recommendation that with some inclusions, additional inclusions, and so I have them here. I'll just read them out. So it's actually, if we refer to page 8 in the document, so it's really on page 8. It's under the heading the role of exhibitions. So on the second line it says we make available relevant documents that may include a draft of the policy, plan or proposed development that we are seeking community input on. So it's ways that the community can give input. It's giving them more opportunity, if as much opportunity as possible. And so the inclusion would come under the subheading, how can you get involved in a public exhibition? And so we'll be just adding these points in a way that fits with the way it's written. So, so I've got here, they can provide input and engage in council displays on pinboards in Dubbo Street, through presentations to village communities of Collie and Nevertire, through presentations to service clubs and sporting groups and other non-government organisations, and publicity through weekly media and social media outlets. And so that's about it. And and then I'd just like to put out there maybe display it for 60 days, although I'm open to discussion.
So you'll provide that list to the General Manager?
Yes.
Yeah, because I think I'm just prepared. The General Manager has a comment on one or two of those or something.
Just if I could change the first one, display on pinboards to pop-up shop. This is the current terminology. No, my fault, I didn't think about it. And just so that we have, pop-up shops which could be on the footpath or in the village or, and it has all those display boards and ability to fill out forms and write up notes and things.
Is that what it could be manned by a councillor? Is that what you're?
I was hoping that we could do more of that. I mean, we've done it in the past, although sometimes I haven't been available, but I think it's really worthwhile. I think feedback from when we have had visibility out the front, it's been positive. So to do more of that, especially when we have important documents that we do require community input on, such as the local strategic planning statement, that we really need to provide as many opportunities for community engagement as possible. Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question of the General Manager? That particular paragraph, how can we get involved in a public exhibition? Isn't that the intent of that paragraph is to how do I respond when I see something in a public exhibition I don't necessarily, I want to support or I want to talk against? So is that the right spot for those things? Because isn't that more about how, if I see a public exhibition of something I don't like, what do I do then? That's what I take out of that. Can we put in, is that really for a new paragraph? What methods can we use for public display?
It's probably how you put the activity in front. So visit the council pop-up shop, attend.
Sure, okay.
So, it's having that word in front, and we'll just write that up in the minutes so it has, that action in front.
And then it talks about feedback a bit later on somewhere in here. And so that needs to tie into that as well. So if you see those things on the night, let's say we had something out the front here, then you say, sorry, you've got to go and you've only got 2 avenues of reply here. One is to go and see the council staff, others to write a letter. Hold on, fill out this now, and that's your response. So that doesn't fit there either. So at those events that we just talked about, there should be a mechanism to respond to right there and then as well, if we're going to make it easy.
You probably don't need to say that, Mr. Mayor, because if you're standing there, it's a bit like when we've done displays already, someone walks up and says, can you do this? You make the note. So any notes you make, you then put back into the system and record it, so that, Mrs. Smith came in and she said she disagreed with the whole proposal for the following reasons. Because she may not formally write that, but you've got that community feedback verbally. So normally you try and capture that while you're going. In any planning studies, if we're having this meeting now about, the LSPS, and you said, well, I think it should be all green, then we're right on the board, change all the colours to green.
Yeah, okay.
You keep a record of it, and it's a requirement where you have public meetings in planning that you actually keep a record of those statements and consider them. Other areas, if you're at the show and you're just talking generally, there's no legal requirement, but in planning you must consider it. So yeah, it's the activity and the paperwork you have on the day, and that's, well, you want to change this, can you fill this out? No, I can't fill it out. Can you note it? Yes, I'll note it.
And I think on those days, whether at the show or whether we have a pop-up stand as we've done in the past, they're very useful and quite potentially powerful things to do. We probably need as a group to formalise what we do there in terms of taking those notes as well. Our first one, it'll be a year ago, I suppose now, I think, out the front here, all sorts of different things came up, and at one moment we were sort of overwhelmed by people talking about barking dogs, and someone else goes, I've got a barking dog. It's like we needed to have a sort of formal collection of information there, but we didn't. It was a little bit haphazard, so maybe we need to think about how we do those and plan those a little bit better in hindsight.
With the, excuse me, with the CPP, I was also going to recommend the 60 days for it to go on exhibition because it is quite an important document. It's significant in its changing process. But I'm open to, hearing the other side of it. If the 60 days doesn't fit, that's the CPP.
The next item, Mr. Mayor, I think that should just be added to the recommendation if that's what you require.
In the local street, as opposed to the community.
They're 2 separate items.
Yeah, okay. So this is a community participation plan.
Yes.
So we'll deal with that at this stage. No further comments, questions? Have to put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to item 2 of the Manager's Health and Development, and that is the local strategic planning statement. Councillor Reading, I take it you'd like to move that.
Yes, thank you.
A second for that, Councillor Turvey, Councillor Irving.
So I'm happy to move it with just an alteration on the public exhibition time period. Extend it from 28 days to 60 because it is a significant document that requires input from the community. I feel that it will give the community more chance to provide input in that time frame. The General Manager has said that if the exhibition period is too long, that can go against us, and if it's too short, it can go against us. So I thought, well, 60 days sounds like a good compromise. So it gives us a chance to maybe talk about how we might get people to feel like the community can feel like they have a sense of ownership of the document as well. That's what I hope. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Irving. Speaker against. So Councillor Irving is amending what is in the recommendation there to say 60 days. So everyone's clear about what is being, that's the motion. Yeah. And further questions, discussion? Put that, all those in favour, against, carried.
Excuse me, this is beside the actual report, but if you've read it and you've found a few problems with the spelling and go and see Glenn, or go and see someone. Just go and see. Oh, jeez. Passing it on to you, I'll go and see you. Oh, that's, you mentioned that. If they did it, did they talk to you at some point? How did they come up with all?
No, they've been talking to us about it and the document. They read the documents for other councils as well, so it's based on the Western councils. So,
some of their water issues are quite interesting.
Okay.
Thank you.
We're out of order there a little bit. Moving on to item 3 of the Manager Health and Development's report, and that being the draft management plans for Crown Land. First thing, I guess, is someone, a mover and a seconder, and then I might just defer again to the General Manager, for a discussion, just for clarity in terms of what is community land, what is operational land, and how it will report if together. So looking for a mover, Councillor Walker, second, Councillor Derrick. Councillor Walker, if you're in best interest, and defer to Manager Health and Development for this one.
Yeah, well, I think it's self-explanatory, so it's just formalising the different 2 categories. Majority of it is operational, so if it's an operational water tower, it's operational land won't require a management plan, whereas community land will.
Councillor, you got a question?
Can we just go back a couple of steps and explain to us why this is being done in the first place, please? What do we need to change these categories, and what's the potential effect going forward? And if we sign up to all these and say, yep, knock yourselves out, what the implications of either misclassifying or actually classifying these? Is there ongoing cost to council going forward? Sort of big picture stuff?
Yep, so it's a legislative change that's come about. I don't see that it will change anything. The only difference between the 2 classifications is that you can't subdivide and sell off community land. So Macquarie Park, you wouldn't be able to redevelop it and sell it off. So yeah, I don't believe it's anything different to currently how we're operating and managing Crown land. We're just formalising it.
But you can subdivide and sell off operational land. So the very first one on that table is reserve number 120065. I've got no idea where that is. What are the implications of me getting this wrong today and classifying it as land that we could sell or subdivide? You know what I mean? I don't know where that is.
Yep, so that subject land is down Silo Road, near the gym.
Including the road?
Part of the road.
Mr. Mayor, could I just suggest there will be an article coming to the next council meeting to ask council to formally close that parking area to the middle of Silo Road. I think there's a lot of difficulties with the roads down near Silo Road. It does relate back to the days of the railway. And I think this area here that Marianne's talking about now is probably a parking area back on the railways there, down that neck of the woods. So it's got to be closed. The Lincoln Road back down, which is something that put Marianne when it comes back into Coombie Road. The laneway.
The Silo Road is
the Silo Road.
Stevens Avenue.
Stevens Avenue comes back down, thank you. And it's gated as well, but I don't know why there's a gate across it. Unless it's an arrangement between previous councils and whatever.
Yeah.
So it's all got to be cleaned up.
Yep. The General Manager has something just to help clarify.
Just help the council out. The Crown land, since the 1993 Local Government Act, has always had to be operational or community. The change to the Crown Land Management Act recently just brought that over. Crown lands, or the New South Wales Government, donated a heap of land to council, which was Crown land, which I think we talked about before. And as part of all of it coming under the new Act, we've got to review all the Crown land that's under council's control and determine whether it's for community use or operational use. So operational use, for instance, is the library. If the library sits on a piece of land which is dedicated for council chambers, but it's operational, we want to conduct a business there, we want to conduct activities there. Our old classifications, all that Crown land was classified as operational, and that's not suitable anymore. The Crown's got a bit smarter than that and said you really do need to look at what the use is. So areas such as, if I use Carter Oval is partly operational and partly community. So the operational areas are the water tower and the bore pumps because they have a commercial activity behind them, and technically the Crown land, all Crown land is owned by the Crown. Council cannot sell it, okay, regardless of whether it's operational or not. We must seek the approval of the Crown to do it, and the government must then proclaim the council can sell that, but any money we make must go back to the state regardless. In community use land, we had a meeting with all the senior staff to go through and identify the land, what its current use is, and could we give some back to the Crown or could it remain as operational? So the operational land really comes back to the activity that occurs on it now. Areas such as Bob Christensen, it's community land because land use is part of the TSR, and even though it's under us, we can't give it away, we can't do anything with it. There's lots of levies in it on Carter Oval that are described in there. We can't give those away, they're part of the community land. All the levies around town, Victoria Oval is community land. It can't be anything else because of the use of the land and the dedication. Excuse me. So what we've done is try and come back and say in this table that to the best of our knowledge, the community land is community land, and we've got to do a management plan, such as the showground, Carter Oval, Victoria Oval, Bob Christensen, and as we get out into the wilderness where they're just little blocks of land for nowhere, no use, they become community land and we do a plan over them. The operational land's a little bit different in that it currently has a use. So the Warren Sale Yards, under the LEP, it's actually zoned industrial. So to keep it operational, we then go back to the Crown and say, well, planning has zoned this industrial. We would like the Crown to release this land for future subdivision. And they'll probably say to us, well, that's good, you go and do the subdivision, spend your money and sell the land and you give us the money back. Okay, so it releases that bit of the land. That's why that's operational, for instance, compared to some of the others. Cemeteries are all community land. Tips are all operational land because it has a use that's there and the community cannot use a tip by law because under the Health Act it's excluded. So we did spend a little bit of time. I think we amended this 3 times before it got up here. And the catch in all this is once it's community land, you must amend your LEP to change it back. Now that's always been the same under the Local Government Act. So if it's classified as community and you wish to turn it to operational, you need to amend the LEP. And that's a security measure so that, you know, as general manager, I walk in and go, gee, I reckon I can sell Carter Oval off and make a quid. You know, probably not in one, but, you know, if I'm sitting in Balmain, I could probably think this way. And it's a protection mechanism that the community has some input into converting from community use to an operational use. So that's really the biggest catch in this classification for us, that if you got a problem called a community, you'd probably, you know, use it for the use you want it out here because no one would pick you up. But legally, you've got to convert it back over. All that makes a bit more sense.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions on that draft management plan for Crown lands? Okay. If being the case, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. On to the rest of them, we have no motion. We have no questions, with notice, no matters of urgency. I don't believe. No confidential vote. We can conclude the meeting. Thank you everyone for your attendance. We can conclude.